Welcome. It's March 5th, 2024, and we're live at the Armory in beautiful Portland, Oregon. This event is called Onward, the Future of Crime and Safety in the Tri-County Area. I'm Evan Bernstein. I'm the past president of NAOP, and currently I sit on the executive committee. I'm also a proud founding board member of a Revitalized Portland Coalition. This event, believe it or not, has been in the works for almost a year. And if it was a basketball game, we'd be called for a traveling violation because we've pivoted too many times. It's crazy. You're going to hear some stuff today that's going to shock you, I think. And really, really interesting. I'm just glad everybody's here to hear it. Big thanks really quickly to a couple of people, the programs chairs of NAOP, Evan Landenberg, I call him the more handsome Evan, and Zach Kirsten. Eric Cole, Executive Director of Revitalized Portland Coalition, Kara Unger, the President of RPC, Jose Cienfuegos, Rich Kurz from KOIN TV, the NAOP staff. Couldn't do this awesome event without you. So along with our generous sponsor, Echelon Protective Services, our wonderful media partner, KOIN TV, a collaboration between Revitalized Portland Coalition and NAOP Oregon, decided that it was time to have an honest, interactive discussion about crime and safety and establish community-driven solutions for a safer city and region. So I mentioned earlier Revitalized Portland Coalition. What is it? You may have heard about it, RPC. Well, we're a real estate collective creating a better city to live and work. We're made up of about 30 organizations, all the big trade organizations, NAOP, SIOR, CAB, Multifamily Northwest, CCIM, IFMA, BOMA, IRM, and building owners, developers, brokers, and service providers. RPC represents about 10,000 professionals in the real estate industry. We have a board, we have an executive director, and we work passionately and tirelessly to try to better the city we all love. Our goal is not to complain about Portland, it's not to move out of Portland, it's to help revitalize Portland, the city we all love. If you're a Revitalized Portland Coalition board member, please stand up real quick. Let's give you a round of applause because you put in so much work. Thank you so much. So what's really, really cool is we have this collaboration between Revitalized Portland Coalition and NAOP. Well, what's NAOP? N-A-I-O-P. We're the Commercial Real Estate Development Association. We're the largest and most influential commercial real estate trade organization in Portland and in North America. NAOP is made up of the who's who of commercial real estate and business here in Portland. NAOP board members, if you're here, please stand up so we can recognize you. You put in a lot of hard work for our industry. Thank you. Right now, I'm so honored and pleased to invite Jose Cienfuegos to the podium. He's the owner of 100 Fires Law. For those of you counting at home, that's Cienfuegos is 100 fires in Espanol. We just got an au pair from Colombia, so I'm confused now about the translation. He's an active board member of Revitalized Portland Coalition. He has over 22 years of experience in criminal defense, criminal prosecution, civil defense, and plaintiff law. He also married way up because he's married to NAOP legend Jody Cienfuegos in the front. Please welcome Jose Cienfuegos. Have a great time, y'all.
All right, so problem number one, I have to follow that. And he's just way too good at it. Can everybody hear me if I leave the mic in? Yeah? Oh, no? Oh, man, you can make me pull this out, aren't you? All right, so again, I am Jose Cienfuegos. Thank you very much, Evan. I appreciate the kind words. Yes, I did marry way up. And I am really happy to be here. Thank you to everyone for being here today. It's going to be a really good program. Thank you again to our sponsors. So I'm an attorney, but I have really nothing to do with property in real estate. I am a divorce attorney and a personal injury attorney. So why am I here? The urging of my beautiful wife came to me after a talk with our president, Kara Unger, and said, they're having some problems because no one knows criminal law. Well, I had the honor of working as a deputy district attorney at Multnomah County under Michael Shrunk. Thank you very much. And I had an amazing experience there. I was also a criminal defense attorney before that. I brought some criminal law background to RPC. I was able to work on the Crime and Safety Subcommittee, where I met some wonderful people and were able to really start effectuating some change. Just a little plug for us, we have a diversion program that we're working on called the Civil Compromise Project. It's going to be diversion, it's through the court system. We actually presented it to the governor. It wasn't picked, but we're still going to go forward. And we're really looking forward to a great program, kind of restart how we handle some small crimes downtown and in Multnomah County, but we do it with a human touch. And I look forward to it, and I invite you all to investigate it. As I said, let me catch up on my notes here. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I lost my place there. So, RPC and NAOP, we're working to hopefully effectuate some positive change here in Portland and Multnomah County. There has been a little bit of events prior to this event over the weekend. I'd like to beg just a few moments of your time. I'm going to read a statement from both RPC and NAOP regarding what has happened over the weekend. I think it's important, we think it's important that we get the truth out there and speak it. And I'm going to read the statement, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to introduce our moderator. So I'll bend down a little bit for this, but I'm not used to reading, so you'll have to forgive me. RPC and NAOP, the organizers of the symposium, want to make a statement about the evolution of this symposium and why there have been some changes, not only to the subject matter of this discussion at this event, but also to the last-minute changes and our panelists. As Evan said, the event is a culmination of work that started over a year ago. We here at RPC, and specifically Crime and Safety Subcommittee and NAOP, were interested in putting together an event that would focus on crime and safety aspect of what was occurring in Portland and the county in general. We wanted to originally have a debate between two candidates. That is Nathan Vasquez, who's here today in the audience, and Mike Schmidt, the sitting district attorney. In August of last year, we contacted both regarding their participation in a debate, and while Nathan was willing to participate, Mike Schmidt told us that it was, quote, too early in the campaign for him to consider at that time, and he declined our invitation. Knowing that not only would our 10,000 members and the general public be interested in hearing what either candidate would do to combat the many criminal and safety issues that affect not only Portland, but Multnomah County in general, we took Schmidt's concerns on the timing of possible debate into consideration, and we put off an event that we would have regarding crime and safety to accommodate Schmidt's concerns. In November of last year, we reached out again to Schmidt and his team to ask him to be part of a DA forum. At that time, it wouldn't be a debate, but more of a moderated discussion between Schmidt and Vasquez. While Vasquez was again willing to participate, Schmidt declined our invitation yet again. Not wanting to give up a possible discussion with our incumbent DA, we rotated and came up with what we thought would be an attractive possibility for Schmidt, a tri-county discussion that would include Schmidt from Multnomah County, the DA from Washington County, and the DA from Clackamas County, and the only candidate for DA in Multnomah County, again, Nathan Vasquez. We even went so far as to get a moderator that was a friend of Schmidt's to make him comfortable with the event and his participation. Schmidt's response was that the participation of Nathan Vasquez in the discussion made the event political. And for that reason, Schmidt would decline the invitation. We even then offered to remove Nathan from the panel, and we were turned down yet a fourth time. Given that it was clear that Schmidt would not want to or agree to participate with our group, we had to modify our symposium and move forward. We were going to have two panel discussions on tonight. One was going to be a DA discussion, and the other one was going to be the panel that you're going to see tonight with the addition of Nathan Vasquez. It has come to our attention in the past couple of days leading up to our event with NAOP that Schmidt and his team have attempted to dismiss and denigrate this event as quote-unquote political, rather than what it is, which is an open exchange of ideas. They have further suggested that participation as a panelist would indicate a bias or be unethical in some way. We also understand that he and his staff indicated that Nathan Vasquez's participation in our event would be an issue for the DA's office. Our position is simple and clear. We have afforded Mike Schmidt several opportunities to participate in several different ways with our group, including this one, twice. To say otherwise is simply untrue. We don't believe an incumbent district attorney should attempt to stop another public official in participating in a public discussion about current affairs for any reason, and especially for the reason to eliminate his opponent from a discussion panel that he was invited to, or to try to stop the discussion altogether. We don't think it's proper for an incumbent district attorney to use his office, time, or money to accomplish his political goals. We're disappointed in the actions of Mike Schmidt. Because of the actions of Schmidt and his team, we've had to ask Nathan Vasquez to not participate in our program tonight, so as to save the panel in general. This is not only a loss for the program but those who watch, but also a loss to Multnomah County, in that one elected official can have this type of control over what is said and by whom in a public forum. I want to thank the panelists for participating in the discussion tonight. I really want to thank Nathan Vasquez for being available each and every time we've asked him to come discuss his thoughts and ideas and plans for Multnomah County as a possible district attorney. As I said, he's in the audience tonight. Nathan, I want to thank you very much for participating or agreeing to participate. I really, I am really sorry that we aren't going to have you as part of this discussion, but it is what it is. What I'd like to say is that we're going to move forward. I appreciate your time with my statement and our statement. And now, with that said, I'd like to introduce the moderator for today's discussion, Lisa. We all know Lisa as a hard-hitting reporter for KOIN TV. She has covered political issues in the Portland area for many years, and apparently it's her favorite beat. She knows Portland and its area very well. She's reported and covered stories not only from City Hall, going back to Vera Katz, but also to Kitzhaber, and most recently, events like the protests and the riots downtown. I cannot think of a better person to moderate this discussion and ask some hard-hitting questions and get some really good answers than Lisa. Lisa, thank you very much from KOIN TV. I'd like to introduce her. Please give a round of applause for her.
Jose.
Sure, thank you.
We're trying to work on a little bit of,
I almost tripped. I almost did that.
trying to work on a little bit of lighting here for folks, so bear with us for a moment while we try and figure that out. I'd like to bring up the panelists here. Portland Police Chief, Bob Day, come on down. Portland City Commissioner Renee Gonzalez. And Multnomah County Commissioner Sharon Myron. Let everybody get settled for a moment and feel free to adjust your microphones. And
How about you give me a chair that's as fat as I am? I can't fit in that one. Thanks. I don't take it personal.
Good opening, Chief. Good opening.
Well, I didn't dress up for you, Commissioner, but
sure. Actually, Chief, I was doing a little research and I looked at when the force was formed back many, many years ago. And actually, after a couple of years, they said one of the requirements is that you had to be at least 175 pounds. It's true. Look that up. What's that?
they can't hear you.
Can't hear? How about now? Is that better? Slightly. Okay. We're looking for our technical folks, so just hang tight with us for a moment here. The microphones, if you folks could just move them a little closer to yourselves, that would be probably helpful as well for the audio here. And, okay, are we any better now? Oops. Oh my God. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started, if that's all right. Everybody good here? We'll do the best we can with the audio, and they're working on adjusting the levels, so just bear with us. Let's start off with the big development this week. As everyone knows, following the legislature, you had the passage of House Bill 4002, essentially the rollback of Measure 110. It's now headed to the governor's office. By the way, she has not received it yet, which means then she has 30 days to make a decision as to what to do with it, recriminalizing small amounts of hard drugs. First question is for the chief. First of all, the criminalization, by the way, that part of it will not go into effect until September, because that will allow the counties some time to put together some of the programs that they need to, the deflection programs. So Chief, first question is, can you give us a preview of what will be happening come September? Are we going to see open use of drugs gone from Portland streets?
Yeah, whoa. Thanks for the softball, Lisa. I appreciate that. Right out. Native Oregonian, I like long walks on the beach, have a Labrador.
Pretty eyes.
Yeah. So the Measure 110, House Bill 4002, is going to definitely be a significant resource for law enforcement. So the unclassified misdemeanor statute, there's been a lot of discussion, C misdemeanor, A misdemeanor, unclassified. I've been public that I'm not really hung up on what that number needs to be. But what this law does do, it allows us to move past the violation into the criminal offense, which means we can take people into custody, we can search them. If we find more drugs on them, then that elevates the charge, and we can book them, take them to MCDC. There's a whole conversation about everything past that, but I'll stay in my lane for a minute. And I do see this as a necessary tool for us to interrupt behavior. I've said for many, many years that the role of laws in our society are to allow for a level of predictability, so that when we're in the public space, we'll come here this evening, there's a level of predictability that allows us to be together and to operate freely. And so the behavior that we see, related to open-air drug use hinders that. It interferes with that. And so, you will see a greater degree of enforcement. I also want to just highlight, though, that we're talking about very acute addiction issues. Fentanyl is a game changer for us in our community and for communities across the country. It's a horrible tragedy. I've worked through crack epidemics and heroin and meth and cocaine, et cetera, and we've never seen anything like fentanyl. And Commissioner Myron's certainly more skilled and educated than I am on it, but there's also tremendous risk with that. As we lean in from an enforcement perspective, these are very sick individuals that have a lot of challenges, and so there's a greater amount of risk in that interaction between law enforcement and community that we have to be aware of in terms of making sure they get good medical care, and knowing there's also a risk that we may not be able to get them medical care in that moment of contact and arrest. And so, working with fire, working with our EMS people as well, just as an awareness piece that there's some definite risks we're taking on by elevating this to arrest.
I want to speak to Commissioner Myron and ask her a question now, in her role also as an emergency room doctor. What do you expect to see or not see there over time when this goes into effect?
Yeah, another easy question. I think that what we can expect to see will depend. And the feature that I'm excited about with this, that my fellow commissioner, Commissioner Julia Brim Edwards, has been working on, is the potential for a sobering center. And I think that so far overdue that it's not even funny. But given that we're starting to look at that, a sobering center is a public safety space where people who are intoxicated, who are having some of these issues, can be deflected, taken to by first responders, police, etc., instead of either the ERs or the jails, which is where they currently go. So right now I see someone intoxicated who comes into the ER, we have to put them in a room, and then we watch them 10, 24 hours until they are sober enough to eat a sandwich and walk out the door. That's not a good use of emergency department resources. The alternative, which is jails, not a good use of jail resources. The other alternative, leaving people on the streets, not a good solution. And so the idea of getting a sobering center finally after 4 years is very exciting.
Commissioner, why is it taking so long when it's something that's needed and there are hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars that are collected for purposes like this?
Failure of leadership.
But there's more than just one person on the commission. I mean, why isn't there enough of a groundswell to get this done?
Because, well, the county commission is very different from the city. At the county commission, the county chair is an executive who makes all of those decisions. For example, appointing Commissioner Brim Edwards to lead this group versus, say, our county chair, our former county chair, who chose to remove the one emergency physician who was sitting there, who does street medicine and works on the front line, from the group looking at this issue. And I'd worked with so many great people on that board, and she has, the chair has that authority. So it's a very different form of government. She sets the budgets, she gets people, and don't want to go into the politics of it, but it's...
Thank you.
yeah.
Let me go on to Commissioner Gonzalez. Commissioner, on this topic, the City Council approved a ban on open use back several months ago, but says it couldn't do anything without a change in state law. If this House Bill 4002 is signed into law by the governor, will that be able to allow the City Council to put this into effect?
I think from a direction, yes. From a technical perspective, no. So
Why is that? Why is that?
there's still separate preemption of cities' ability to ban outdoor drug use, and it wasn't addressed in the measure that the state legislature took up. But more fundamentally, the repeal of Measure 110 is responding to what City Council did last summer. It's responding to what ordinary Oregonians or ordinary Portlanders were yelling for. We were responding very directly from what we were hearing every day. I'm tired of my child witnessing fentanyl consumption, meth consumption. I'm worried about my parents walking down the street. I'm tired of inhaling this. We addressed it very directly as a city of Portland, but we also recognized that it could have a ripple effect on the state legislature, a positive one, that the most progressive city in Oregon, arguably the most progressive city in America, would have the gall to ban outdoor drug use some 3 years after a ballot measure decriminalized drugs. So from my vantage point, it's been a smashing success. I applaud what the state legislature did. They had to take some hard look at some of their constituents. They were accused of being racist because they wanted to ban possession of hard drugs. They got a lot of sticks and stones thrown at them, and they held the line, and they responded to Portlanders and Oregonians. So I applaud them for what they did, and I see it as, I'm glad that the city of Portland had a role in making that happen.
Do you still see something that needs to be done for this to go into effect, though? You're saying, though, the city's ban won't apply?
I think at the end of the day, whether you bust someone for consumption or you bust them for possession, it's what tools does that give police to interact. And so from a citizen's perspective, what we're responding to is literally what we see, what we smell, what we witness, right? From a technical legal perspective, what supports police's efforts to disrupt that? What is the trigger that gets people on the path to recovery? And sometimes that's a windy road. When we can talk about deflection, we can talk about drug courts. For some, it's going to be quick. For some, it's going to be a long journey. But from my vantage point, what the state legislature has done has given the chief and his police force a method to interact, a method to disrupt, and we may need to make further changes, but it's a step in the right direction. Last but not least, for you all that speak to the capital world, where they're choosing to invest, you got to tell people that the city of Portland and the state of Oregon have spoken very clearly. We are done with the past. This nightmare is over. We are driving forward. So we'll welcome your investment, we'll welcome your workers, and we'll welcome your headquarters.
Turning to the chief for a minute, onto another subject. A lot of people say they don't feel safe being in downtown Portland. Walking in Portland, daytime, nighttime, working in downtown Portland, huge pushback from people saying, I don't want to come back, I want to stay working remotely. Homicides and shootings definitely were down in numbers last year, but we have some other issues as well that have surfaced. For example, the rampant retail theft, the organized rings that are underway. Your office has done, your bureau has done different missions to try and tamp that down. Are there any policing changes you expect to make in the coming months when it comes to the public feeling safer in downtown Portland?
Yeah, so first of all, and I say regularly that we cannot not believe our experience. And, if Commissioner Gonzalez is in pain and I tell him he's not in pain, that's not very helpful. So I don't deny the fact that people do have that experience and that fear. The other area that I emphasize as part of the mission statement of the Portland Police Bureau is we are about reducing crime and the fear of crime. I'll say that, reducing crime we're actually pretty good at. We've had pretty good success. In January of 23, we had almost 1,000 stolen vehicles in the city. Started our stolen vehicle operation missions, focus missions last year. In January of 24, we had less than 400, over a 50% reduction. Our retail theft missions, focusing on retail theft, has had a significant impact. Recovered somewhere, these are rough numbers, but about $50,000 in merchandise. We have several stores that we've been working with that are able to function at a higher level and are encouraged by our participation. So we're in the process of that. We're recovering guns. We're making other cases. So we're really pretty good at reducing crime and the crime numbers. In fact, calls for service were down last year, and crime overall was down, both property and violent crime. Now, that doesn't really do any good if you've had that negative experience or if you know somebody who's had that negative experience, and I would imagine that applies to everybody in this room. So we are really committed to trying to create a different experience for our officers, frankly, who have their own story to tell, and an experience for our community. So one of the things we did back in December was brought back the walking beats in an intensive way downtown for a period of time. And although that was a very small sample size, we saw a reduction in calls for service in most of the areas that we walked in. And that was about 200 members of the organization participating, myself included. We contacted a little over 5,000 people, and the emphasis was really just being present, just being engaged. I hope to reinvigorate that come the end of the month. Kind of have my eye on the cherry blossoms that I love to see bloom here soon in Waterfront Park. We know Portlanders will be itching to get outside as the weather starts to turn. And so looking at some efforts there, both downtown but also citywide, where we can put folks out more in a walking beat capacity, is puts them on the ground, puts them next to the issues, making those connections. That's a goal of mine, as well as a continued emphasis on the missions. We have a lot of different efforts, and we're trying to make around retail theft, human trafficking, stolen vehicles, firearms, gun violence, et cetera, because we have seen a return on that. But it's not lost on me that we have to create a different experience. And we're going to try to do that individually, but we're also going to do that by promoting the good work and the messaging that we can put out there. I like to say, there's a reason the windshield's bigger than the rearview mirror. I'm not in denial of where we've been, but, we've got our foot on the gas, full speed ahead, and we're starting to see some of the results from that.
Chief, what happened to the foot patrols? Why didn't they continue?
That was a decision I made. I came on board October 11th. And I knew that would be a big ask of the organization because it was something that I required, as I said, from my position throughout the organization. And I knew that was a big ask in terms of people's schedules and times. And so I wanted to, demonstrate a commitment to the community, but also respect the needs within the organization. Every business in here, mine alone as well, is challenged by resources, and resources are time, people, and money. And there's a finite amount of all of that. And I knew that this was an important time of the year, the season, specifically the holiday season, would be a great time to get out and show our support. So I asked the Bureau to lean in for that time period, which they did. It actually, not surprising to me, but to many of our Bureau members, really actually found it to be a very positive experience, and that's why I'm excited to bring it back starting towards the end of the month. So it just was a commitment I felt like I could ask in my immediate tenure. But, we're revisiting it now.
Commissioner Gonzalez, there's so many empty storefronts, office buildings, in downtown Portland. What policies or strategies will you propose to improve livability in terms of crime and safety to restore confidence in the community to get people back?
Well, we're going to have to think big about downtown. We have maybe reached the new normal of what post-pandemic office utilization looks like at this point. That's going to necessitate some real reassessment of our current mix of residential and office downtown. But there's no easy solutions on that. I'm going to be very specific. Many of you in this room know these numbers, but it costs $80 to $100 a square foot to convert from office to residential. And if we're looking at a dramatic decline in the demand for office space, we're going to have to think very, very big about what stimulus we can bring in to drive that conversion. That's an element. We've got to rethink the mix downtown so that we have people here utilizing at night, utilizing our restaurants and some of our other retail. Secondly, we're looking at a TIF district for downtown. I've been a big proponent of that. That will be a piece of the equation. Third, we've also just done some serious abatements on your business taxes. That's all to stimulate, all to incentivize people signing leases. But it's not enough. We have a broken tax structure in the region. Unfortunately, Portland residents are overtaxed by both the county and metro, in part by through tax measures that were adopted in recent years, and we absolutely know that that is a contributing factor to the drive of people out of Multnomah County, out of the city of Portland. So the city of Portland has to lead on that discussion. We have no control over the county or metro. We have no control over the taxes they impose upon our residents, but we can be very loud advocates for our citizens that they'll pay their fair share, but we have to have a thoughtful tax architecture and to make sure that when you pay those taxes, they're going to good uses. Last but not least, we do need to make space to think big as the city of Portland again. We have been responding to one crisis after another since 2020. It's been painful, and I wake up every morning, on Monday morning, I get to read the 911 data. You don't get to hide from the ugliness in the city of Portland when you read the 911 data. I see all sides of it. We've got to confront the realities on our streets directly, realistically, and with clarity. On the flip side, we have to build a big vision for the city of Portland. I think we have to fight for Major League Baseball just to be in the game. We have to retain the Blazers and revitalize our arts downtown, all of which have been challenged by the pandemic. And that's not just a simple tactic. That's talking, that's thinking, that's believing big as the city of Portland. I think downtown will benefit from that big visioning.
Commissioner Myron, we talked about the tax issue, and everybody's ears perked up, I saw here, very, very quickly. On the taxation issue, with a lot of expiring leases, we hear a lot of companies looking at going over to Beaverton, Tigard, Clackamas County, taxation being a big part of the push. If remote work is the new normal, what about incentives to turn some of the empty office high-rises into affordable housing so more people could live in the greater downtown area and sustain the retail business and essentially inherently make it safer?
So in terms of that, I think what has struck me with a lot of this conversation so far and in general is the need for clarification of roles and responsibilities as we work together to develop a vision and a plan, as Commissioner Gonzalez mentioned. And in terms of affordable housing, that is in the bailiwick of the city. And so not to defer, but what I would speak to are the county's roles and responsibilities in terms of what is happening downtown and what we can do to change it. Because the county, most people don't even know the county exists, let alone what we do. But we are responsible for homeless services. We are the local mental health authority, so we are supposed to oversee mental health and addictions. We are responsible for a behavioral health crisis response system. We are responsible for public health, and that includes in spaces where there is rampant homelessness and where we need to address that. And so I really appreciate that my colleagues here and the roles that they play, and I've worked with both of them, and found openness and the opportunity to collaborate in sort of the big picture solutions. But I think we need to work together within our lanes so that we are addressing the things that we are able to address. And I do want to say thank you, because I think the city has picked up the slack when the county has failed in its responsibility, whether it's through Portland Street Response, which is a behavioral health crisis response, whether it is for the chat team, which goes out and addresses health issues, the task sites with shelter. There is so much they have done to fill in the gaps, and it's time that we came together to figure out what is our role. We need to be addressing mental health and addiction way better, homelessness way better, and there are solutions. But that's sort of I can't speak to affordable housing.
And I guess this sort of opens up the door to the question I had about the city and county's relationship. As everyone knows, it's been more than a little tense. I think I would liken it to the kids in the back seat on the family road trip that are arguing, hitting each other, and finally you have to pull over and say, look, knock it off. And I think that's where the public is at this point, because we see everybody sort of not necessarily kiss, but shake hands and say, we're going to do better, and it doesn't happen. So what is needed? In other words, instead of saying, this is what we do, I don't do this, I don't do that, and the public spending hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer dollars saying, we're giving them the money, help the homeless situation, help the crisis, instead of arguing so much. What needs to be done at this point, short of having the governor come in, once again, like mom, in the drug crisis, saying, okay, Portland, I'm going to get this squared away for you? Is the governor or a mediator going to have to come in and say, look, we're going to help you out with this homelessness situation? Commissioner Gonzalez, go ahead, because you're the next one to speak. Go ahead.
Well, it's a complex relationship. I mean, everything I touch in public safety overlaps with the county. Every single part of my job has an element of overlap. And the reality is there's been political forces that apply themselves differently in the city and county. For better or worse, and Commissioner Myron alluded to it, the county's largely flown under the radar screen in most of the political discourse over the last 10 years. The city has no such luxury. It is the bigger brand. It is the races that people have historically paid attention to. It's where incumbents actually get replaced from time to time. I unseated an incumbent. It was a third straight cycle we saw an incumbent get replaced. So I think that has made the city up to this point in some ways more responsive to the immediacy of where voters were. Just simply, that's where people paid attention. That was their outlet. It's what the news often pays attention to. What has shifted in recent years is really, I'd say, Metro's money for homelessness and the large number of dollars that flowed into the county. Suddenly, you have press paying attention. Suddenly, you have a lot of taxpayers paying attention. Then you add universal pre-K. Which is really a tough one for a lot of the folks in this room, as well as their tenants and their owners. And so you saw this aggregation of capital at the county level and not seeing outcomes on the streets of Portland that were commensurate with our tax burden. So we did a universal pre-K to support children, to support working families. And things haven't gotten better for working families in the city of Portland, much less our education environment. We spent all this money on homelessness and aren't seeing the homelessness problem improve. And so it is a dynamic situation. What I would say is that I think we need to make space longer term for what is the right structure of city and county. Do we need to rekindle the conversation around consolidation? That's reared its head numerous times in the last 50 years. I was never particularly interested in that topic until I took on public safety, and everything I do, there is an overlap with another governmental entity in my jurisdiction subject to different political forces than I am. So that's more of a medium, longer term thing. Do we consolidate? What's the right role with Metro? And we need to make space for that conversation. I will be blunt, however, that part of this relationship has been in recent years the city leading on task sites, on safe rest villages, on a number of innovations. I think that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. I think the city does have to lead just because of the big brand and being where folks expect response. At the same time, these systems are complicated. You know, I've spent a lot of time, as has Commissioner Myron in recent months, just on our ambulance service. This is an incredibly complex area, and I happen to have I share with Commissioner Myron a perspective on that. We happen to disagree quite a bit with the chair on the immediacy of our ambulance crisis, but there's no disputing it is a complex system that has ripple effects, and some of the pieces are at the city and some pieces are at the county. I don't think you would build the government structure we have today knowing the way the city of Portland has grown, that 75% of our population for Multnomah County actually sits in a single city. We're the only jurisdiction in the state that's like that. And so we're dealing with an antiquated government system to very modern problems and doing the best we can.
Commissioner Myron, how does this get fixed and not 5, 10, 20 years from now? Because the public is frustrated that nothing's happening. They're spending all this money, and you have the infighting, and at some point, it's got to get figured out.
I agree. I am extremely frustrated, having been at the county and watched some of the machinations that happen and the disagreements. And I think what's been interesting as it's occurred is the relationships among individual commissioners and between the commissioners, both at the county commission and across the river, are excellent. I mean, I have to say, I feel like I could call Commissioner Gonzalez and talk to him about anything, all of the commissioners. And I think the problem does tie in again to leadership. And what we end up seeing are press releases that come out with the voices of leadership saying things that may not be reflective of what the commissions themselves feel or engagement or what is happening, the true collaboration.
So how do you get around that? In other words, it is what it is. So
Yes.
in other words, does everybody just need to go to a retreat? Everybody? I'm honestly, in other words,
Yeah.
to work it out, to figure it out, whatever it needs to be done to make it happen, as opposed to more finger pointing.
I think the voices of the people are starting to finally be heard, because we are saying enough of this. And I'm seeing like just some of the individuals who are here today, I know that are running for individual commissioners' seats have, and I'm just kind of looking out there, but they have views that are different, that aren't go along to get along, that they are about moving the collective we forward, the city and the county together. And so we speak with our votes, we have forums like this, we come together and talk. The elevation of these issues itself, I'm watching change happen I've never seen before. And I think it is because the realization and voice of actual people is finally being heard. So I think that's great. Keep doing it and pay attention to these races. They actually matter.
Question for the chief, different hot topic. The Portland Street Response Team. We're a two-person team of an EMT and a mental health professional respond instead of a police officer in a particular mental health situation in the street. There seems to be definitely consensus that this program is saving lives, but the question is, where should it live? As a bit of a political hot potato. It's under the Fire Bureau right now. There's talk about maybe going back under the mayor and community safety program. It's sort of a program that needs a permanent home. Why not put it under the guise of the police bureau, since these folks are working essentially in that space? Would you be willing to have it there?
Yes. I mean, you know.
Want to shake on that?
You know, here's my attitude, folks. We got to get stuff done. Whether it's in the Fire Bureau, whether it's in the Police Bureau, if it's an effective program and it's having an impact and it's making a difference, then let's get on with it and let's get it done. And so, you know, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from Portland Street Response. I'm proud of the people that are working and serving in it. It definitely has its challenges. It hasn't been a panacea. You know, we can talk about cahoots in Eugene. I was just on the phone with Albuquerque, New Mexico, chief of police. They have a program down there that's doing great stuff, but they also have a totally different model. Their people will go to calls that our folks won't go to or can't go to. You know, this is just one more tool in the toolbox. And the more that we can, you know, advocate and look for alternative responses, I'm all about. But the reality is we need you know, law enforcement, and that's the conversation that we're having for the first time in this city in my 30-plus years of service. Portland has been a very safe city for a long, long time. I was looking at the numbers just today around homicides and other violent crimes going back. I mean, we had some years not too long ago, 2015, 2016, and don't quote me exactly, but, you know, we had 14, 15, 20 homicides. I mean, this city got away with a lot in terms of its lack of investment in public safety. And then sort of the wheels came off, not only in Portland, but around the country. I talk to major city chiefs all the time, and now we're trying to play catch up. And it's gonna be a heavy lift. And I applaud both commissioners that are on the stage and others that are leaning in. And if Portland Street Response can be a part of that, you know, I'm all in. Now, I'm probably getting a text message from the mayor in a few minutes, but, you know, I'll let the mayor and the commissioner fight that out.
Would you be willing to be a mediator for the city and county retreat?
I've spent a little bit of time there, yeah.
Turning to the occupancy rate in downtown Portland with the buildings, with the empty, I mean, every block you see empty, vacant space that was filled up office space not too long ago. There's a big question as to what's going to happen with that. There's still a lot of people who feel that if you required people to come down to work, as much as people say, oh, they wouldn't come, they'll quit, they won't come to work, I'll have to go find more people. But if the city and county, and asking the commissioners, were to set the example and require their people to be in office 5 days a week. I hear everybody, yeah. If city and county were to require this and essentially be the leaders, despite, again, saying, oh, people won't do that, but why not do that? Why not at least give it a try to say, we're paying for the heat, the taxpayers are paying to heat the buildings, keep the lights on, the maintenance, that's a lot of money being spent. Why not be the leaders?
I'm in my office 5 days a week.
But I'm talking about countywide.
Well, I'll start with what I control. So I'm there 5 days a week. My staff is expected to be there 5 days a week unless they have childcare 1 to 2 days a week. That's the world I control. As a reminder, our first responders have been showing up for work every single day since the pandemic started. So in public safety, they're really clapping for these guys and for our fire. But when you're talking about our 911 dispatchers, our firefighters, our police officers, our PBOT employees, they never stop showing up for work. And so in some ways, the city has been somewhat of a leader there. Now, we have an expectation for our bureaucracy to be there 50% of the time currently. We're projecting they're there about 30% of the time. There's an enforcement issue, right? So you say you got to be there half the time, but carrying that down into a large bureaucracy right now is a challenge of enforcement. I do think this gets better after 2025, but there is an element of the folks in the bureaucracy looking at the shifts in transition in government, really wondering, do we really have to listen to these electeds right now, given the new form of government's going to be there January 1, 2025? So that's just a management issue we are working through right now. But look, I think we need leadership, both now and in the new form of government, set substantial expectations for presence in our office buildings. Whether the right number is 3 days a week, 4 days, or 5, it still needs to be a majority. So I think I'm already walking that walk, and we push the city to do further there. At the same time, we do have to face the reality of competitive workforces where our tenants or city government are competing for talent, and many alternative employers are continuing to offer flexibility in work arrangements. That's the reality we swim in 2024, 2025 compared to 2019. And I think we need to, when we look at that occupancy rate, I'm going to get back to some of the themes we talked about before. We're going to have to find a way for conversions to pencil. We're going to continue to have to be creative on flexibility on zoning that's going to give folks true options there. And we're going to have to look at ways to stimulate activity downtown regularly 5 days a week during the work week, and then all evenings and weekends. And that's taking creativity, that's creating vision, and that's just creating energy in places that we want people to be there. We've got to create an attraction there.
Commissioner Myron?
Yeah, what he said, and I think we need to, I mean, we need to.
Are you in your office 5 days a week?
I'm not in my office 5 days a week,
How many days would you say?
probably 3, at least. I also have a lot of the time is spent in meetings that are not virtual, but in other places that are not in my office. And so it's hard to gauge.
Do you think it's important, though, for the county
Absolute-
government to
oh,
require
Absolutely. No,
employees to be there 5 days a week?
I'm not sure whether the balance is 5 days a week, but I say we can argue about whether it's 3, 4, 5 days a week. Should they be there regularly and a majority of the time? Absolutely. And we're just finding out. I mean, I just heard today about a study that was done that, you know, in the beginning of the pandemic, I think there were corporations that were saying, oh, we're seeing increased productivity because people can stay at home and do some of their business and all of that. What we're recognizing over the longer term is that what we suffer and give up with that is innovation and the opportunity to collaborate and be with your colleagues and working on those kinds of solutions and the relationships. And that is huge. So we can't underestimate that, and just the physical presence of being there that fills a void that can then build on itself. So I absolutely believe we should be there.
We're going to turn to some questions from some of you folks who have written out some questions. So Jose has those.
All right, so we've got a couple questions here. This first one is for the chief and Commissioner Gonzalez. The community sentiment towards public safety and PPB has changed dramatically. What programs and plans can be restarted or developed to allow the community to play an active role and support our police and first responders? Either one of you can go first.
Wow, that's a great question. I appreciate that very much. And I do think the public sentiment has changed, although I think there has been, the public, a feeling appreciated has really been a great experience, as we would expect. But I do think that Portlanders have valued their law enforcement over the years, but not really understood the significance of the role until we've seen the crisis we've been in lately. So in terms of programs that we can talk about, some of the things we're doing in the Police Bureau, we're doing more community academies, so we're creating space for members of the public to come in, spend time in with our training division for a day, get an idea about what that looks like, what that experience it is, and then trying to build upon that and to develop longer lasting relationships to be able to be advisors for us on various issues. You know, we are trying to reconnect not only with our business associations, but with our neighborhood associations, doing more outreach. Chuck Lavelle and the Community Engagement Program, we have a number of advisory councils right now in the Police Bureau that advise me and advise other chiefs and leaders in the organization. Those are largely around like the Muslim Advisory Group, the Latino Advisory Group. I wouldn't be opposed to a business advisory group, et cetera, but we have a number, 8 or 9 of those that have been around, we're developing. So there is an increased opportunity in those ways. And then we're just trying to be creative. I mean, I would love to take all of the energy and put you all in uniform and deputize you all, but I know that's not realistic. So just finding ways to partner and be more assertive in sort of this momentum that we're all generating.
Good. supplement that with at least having a real discussion about whether we bring back the police reserve program. We had that some 10 plus years ago, and there are some legal barriers currently with the DOJ, potentially in reinstituting them, but that's basically ordinary citizens becoming sworn police officers, adding capacity at times like New Year's or really surge demand for police. What I love about the concept is that it does give you a chance to walk in their shoes and to experience what it means to be a police officer in the city of Portland. I think it helps bridge the gap between citizens and everyday Portlanders. Second, I think we have to continue to think about what we can do to recruit from our communities for Portland Police, and I think we're doing a good job of that. I mean, our last couple of classes have seen substantial, one, diversity in the makeup of our police force, two, the number that are coming from the city of Portland, and that's really beautiful to see. It's kind of on the reverse side of your question, but it is really essential that we're keeping that fabric, that connection with neighborhoods in our city. And what I tell every graduating class at the police academy, or every sworn that comes in, please spend time in the city of Portland without your uniform on. Please come to our restaurants, walk the streets, and spend a day here when you're not working, when you don't see the city on its worst day. See it on its best day. And the flip side for citizens, thank your police officers for what they're doing. They are a finite resource. We are fighting like hell to retain them. And I'm going to be real blunt about this. The police department has done a really good job of building their pipeline. We've worked with the state to speed up the process there, but we're fighting tooth and nail to keep above 800 sworn right now. And that's despite substantial hires. The problem is people are quitting too fast. The chief is in a better position to talk about the psyche of the police department at different levels depending on when they've come in. But that's something that everyone in this room should be concerned about. And so if you see a police officer doing their job, thanking them. I think that goes a long way. And last but not least, pay attention to what's on the ballot with respect to police oversight and make sure it's really what it promises. We have a police department that feels demonized at times, and in public meetings, I'm often the one who's correcting folks who are talking about an individual settlement and spend 3 minutes on a soliloquies about all the terrible things police have done in this city over the last 40 years. I correct them, and it's essential that we all take those steps. That's not an abandonment of accountability, but we've got to keep the picture complete when we talk about it. And last but not least, you all fight for employees in your business. As a city, we have to fight to retain high-quality police officers. That is a communal piece, and those are little steps and big ones.
Thank you very much. Chief Day, a follow-up question on that. The commissioner has said that fighting like hell to stay over 800. Where would you like to be number-wise?
Yeah, that's another great question. I like these audience questions better than Lisa's. I would say, the number that we the number that we aspire to, that we've been at in the past, is closer to 1,100. There's a national standard out there that kind of fluctuates around 2 per 1,000, which would put us, more closer to the neighborhood of 1,400. But, we are woefully understaffed, and I don't labor that. I mean, the reality is that doesn't do you folks any good for me to sit up here and tell you we don't have enough people, so I intentionally don't talk about that. I firmly believe in that we have a responsibility to provide the highest level of service we can with the resources we have. But to echo the commissioner's comments, and I appreciate his sentiments, we are aggressively hiring. We are aggressively trying to retain folks. And our authorized strength is right around 880 or so, 885. We're at a little over 800 right now. We do anticipate we could see up to 50 to 75 retirements this year. So even if we hire 80 folks this year like we're planning, I think this is probably the year where we're going to bottom out. I'm predicting that we'll probably be still around 800 at the end of the year, but then I'm hoping that we'll be able to rise. And, when we talk about community input and we've talked about the role of our electeds, If that number starts to rise and we start to get closer to that 850, 880 number, I'm going to be the first one at City Council asking to expand that to 950 or 1,000. Right now, for me to come to them and say, hey, give me 1,100, when I'm having a hard time just keeping 8, doesn't make a lot of sense. But when we start making some traction, which I really hope to see by the end of the year, then you can expect me to be back at the door saying, okay, we're bumping up against that number. Let's try and get another one.
Gotcha. Let's take one more. Community courts seem to have left, and there is an appearance that there are no repercussions for committing small misdemeanors. Do you think that there is a need for a return of community courts to address certain misdemeanors?
You want me to go first on that? So community courts, and I wish we had the DAs up here, could probably speak to them with much more detail. But I'm going to answer that question from strictly a city's perspective. We once had a municipal court some 50 years ago in the city of Portland, and a number of cities in our state do have them. I think that we need to have that conversation as a city of Portland. I will tell you the current mayor is concerned about duplication of efforts. 50 years ago, we consolidated our municipal court into what was then the district court for efficiency. It was deemed more cost effective. The irony is at the time there was really frustration with the then Portland city attorney for not prosecuting enough misdemeanors. So they thought that things would be better by sending it to the county. Hopefully we can see some correction at the county level. I think the winds are blowing the right way there. But from a city perspective, we have to have this conversation about municipal court, again, from my vantage point, that is 100% focused on misdemeanor crimes. That's your property crimes, your kind of lifestyle crimes that are just so demoralizing for everyday citizens. We have to find the budget dollars to do it, but part of that equation too is the traffic difficulties we're seeing, the number of people driving without tags, the number of people speeding, and we can make all the investments we want in traffic cams, but if someone doesn't have a license plate, we can't bust them for speeding. So it's just the worst of both worlds, but I think that that's a conversation as a city that we need to have ongoing, is whether we need to enter to supplement the county courts, the district courts now. Community courts were historically run by Multnomah County. So again, I have to punt to them to answer about bringing them back. I don't know if you have something to add, Sharon.
Did you just punt?
I
Okay.
did, on that part.
Was that a punt?
That was a 5-minute punt.
Yeah.
Well, Commissioner, you know, when I was a DA, we had community courts in Gresham, we had downtown, we had neighborhood community courts. So what's your take on this?
Well, personally, I'm a big fan of the community courts, and I think that we should be absolutely bringing those back for a number of reasons. To address what neighbors are experiencing in their communities, to feel that connection, to develop a relationship, to be heard. I mean, there's so many things where I feel there is a benefit there. I think when I talked earlier about roles and responsibilities, that's one of those areas, again, where I think the county has been able to fly under the radar and avoid responsibility for some of these conversations when the county is responsible for overseeing the county courts, for funding the DA's office, for funding the sheriff's office and the jails. So recognizing where those levers are is really, really important as we're having these conversations, and also recognizing what we're trying to achieve. So in terms of misdemeanors, is it something that we want to address the property crimes? Do we want retribution? You know, what is it that we want to achieve? Or as we're, you know, coming full circle to measure 110, are we trying to drive behavior change and get people from drugs into treatment and recovery and have a path for that? So there's a lot of things to think about there, but absolutely we should be thinking about them, and we need to be thinking about them holistically and together.
Thank you very much. I think that's all the audience questions we're going to have. Punt it back to Lisa here.
just to wrap up, and by the way, it's impressive that you folks have all stayed. It's very impressive to our panel and your responses. We really appreciate that a lot. Flipping this for a minute here, just one last question for all the panelists. What is it that you would like from the folks here? In other words, knowing who the audience is here, it's a very specific group of people from the community. What is it that you would like from them that would be helpful for you perhaps to do a better job at your job?
Start with me?
Sure.
Okay. I just encourage you to continue to hold us accountable. I mean, I'm a public servant at heart. This is what I signed up to do. I didn't come back last October because I was looking for a job. I'm back because I really believe in this community. And one of the things that I looked at closely, and I didn't go anywhere, I've still been around, but one of the things I looked at very closely was we're in a unique time in our city where people are leaning in, not only in this room, but I hear it and I see it every day. And they're leaning in on this conversation of public safety in a way that we haven't had before. And it's not just about being appreciative of the police, it's being appreciative of all of these programs and things that have been discussed. So I would just encourage you to stay engaged, you know, to hold the police accountable to our actions, to make sure we're being responsive to the best of our ability, but also with the electeds to be, you know, aware of what's happening and being that voice, letting people know that you're concerned, letting people know what's a priority for you. This Measure 110 thing is really been amazing to watch. I've been in tons of conversations. I echo Commissioner Gonzalez's comments with Senator Lieber and others. I applaud them for leaning in. I mean, it has really been our political system in action. You know, the community in 2020 or whenever that got passed, I mean, it was a massive change for us, but it passed pretty strongly, and now there was no way in the world this short session was going to go by and there wasn't going to be change. That's because of you. That's because of the voices that came to the table. So just continue to engage with us and hold us accountable.
I'd say fortitude and faith. And when I talk about fortitude, from my vantage point, we've given a lot up in the city of Portland to ideology, to loud minorities, to cartels, to out-of-state money that funded Measure 110, and a number of big experiments in our government. We lost sight of public safety and livability. We lost sight of seniors aging in place. We lost sight of the creators, the builders, the employers along the way. So I say, first, keep it up, and we need your fortitude. Don't cede another damn inch of this town to ideologues, to loud extremes, to out-of-state money that interfere with our ability to enjoy our city. Second, we need your faith. And our city has faced hard times before in our long history. We had to rebuild downtown in the 70s and 80s. And that was decisions of some good leaders, but also thousands and tens of thousands of Portlanders betting on the city, doubling down, not giving up. Sometimes after a previous generation went to the suburbs, coming back. And so it's gonna be a tough path ahead of us. We got here by 1,000 bad decisions and some things we can't control. We're gonna get out of it with 1,000 good decisions, but it's gonna take an element of faith, and that's holding the hands together, walking forward. It's some element of restoring what we lost, but also building a new vision and a new post-pandemic Portland and what that can really be. Start with that.
Those are both great. So what we need to see are a plan. We need plans, whether it's homelessness, whether it is public safety, whether it is mental health and addiction, and we need a shared vision. We need coordinated systems and true collaboration, not just saying the word collaboration over and over again. We need accountability, and we need urgent investments in the things that will yield results in the short term, like a sobering center, while we work on those longer term solutions. And if you see any of that not happening, you need to hold us to account. And it is a matter of showing up, and it is a matter of forums like this and demanding answers. It is a matter of writing to all of your elected officials and maybe your police chief and it's a matter of reaching out and saying, you know, we see you and this is not happening. And then you need to step up. I mean, and what you've done so far has been quite incredible, but you just need to call it out. Don't just take the press releases at face value. Don't just take the words that you see coming out in the papers at face value. If they don't match what you're actually seeing in the community where you live, in your work and what you do, then you need to call it out. You need to raise that voice, and in forums like this, you need to make that heard. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate all of you here today asking these questions, demanding some of that accountability, and just showing up. So that's what I think we need.
All right. Anyway, a round of applause for our panelists here who didn't know what they were going to face and did good.
I'll just wrap it up. Give it up for Lisa. You are incredible. Great job. And again, our panelists, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days to be here. Really appreciate it. Thanks to our media partner, KOIN TV, Rich and the photographers, Lisa. Watch TV tonight. KOIN, you might be on television. Our wonderful sponsor, Echelon Protective Services. Thank you. All of our volunteers who made this event possible. We appreciate you. Our audience, give yourself a round of applause. And keep it close to the Revitalize Portland Coalition and NAOP social media pages. We're on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. There'll be a conversation, so make sure you chime in. I want to just quickly invite the NAOP program chairs, Evan Landenberg and Zach Kirsten, for 1 minute of some closing remarks. They did a great job planning this event along with Eric Cole and the whole RPC team. So Ev and Zach.
We'll be quick. I know everybody's ready to get out of here. Just wanted to say we are in the middle of an emergency. At NAOP Oregon, we're committed through our programs like this today and through our platform generally to doing what we can to help, but we need your support. We can't do it without you.
We want to thank you all for your support and for sticking with us. Our next event will be in May, so please keep your eye out for that. If you guys have any ideas for events in the future, please do not hesitate to reach out and give us suggestions. Together, we can all make a difference. Thank you, and good night.